Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel once again, bro. This is some crazy stuff. Another swipe for you guys. You guys have been so nice to me. I was trying to make it rhyme there, but whatever. But I've been doing all those comparisons, the iPhone 11s, the Pros, the Google Pixels, all those phones, dude. It's time for us to take it back to our roots and start looking at some older technology again. And what I can tell you is, dude, this specific phone right now that I'm reviewing is one of the best phones for the value per dollar, in my opinion. You're getting so much for the value per dollar, and I don't know why people still sleep on this phone right now. Like, I still think it's a tremendous value for what you're getting, and that specific phone is a Samsung Galaxy Note 8. And I definitely do think Samsung did some really weird things with this device. For this phone to be slept on as much it is God, I can't even say it right. I think people are crazy to overlook this phone even in the used market. Now, looking at the front, okay, this is crazy stuff. We have a 6.3-inch Super AMOLED display, okay? It's a Super AMOLED display. It is a very good panel. Every single time I've ever picked this thing up, have had nothing but like rave reviews about it. I think it's a very good panel. I think with the Galaxy S10, those panels do kind of give the facade that it is better because, we have like less bezel on it. We have, a whole bunch of display. But I think the Samsung Galaxy Note 8's panel is still very good, even with that little bezel on the top and bottom. With the sides, there's very little bezel. It tapers off. So it gives that kind of, facade that it is a little bit less bezel than it is. But I definitely do think the front of this phone is still fierce. It still looks very, very nice. And even just the build quality is just very phenomenal for literally this device. Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to sell you this device, which I kind of am in a way, but you have glass on the back, glass on the front, obviously, and it just feels like it still feels like $1,000 phone. And looking on the back, we have a dual camera setup, which still kind of relevant. We have a dual camera setup on the Pixel 4 that just got released, so it's not too behind. This thing was released in 2017, so a little bit over 2 years ago, that's when it was available to buy. And looking at it, maybe the little bit of bezel up top and bottom make you think it was like a 2-year-old device or older. But when you look at what we have in the market right now, with like the notch device still on the iPhones, the Pixel still having a little bit of bezel up top, and even like some other phones like the LGs, like this phone is not that old looking of a device at all. And on top of that, you have a micro SD card slot in this device as well, which is awesome, as well as the S Pen. The S Pen is a super huge feature of the whole entire Galaxy Note line, and you still have that capability on here. And when the Note 8 was released, this was back when, the Notes was just one singular device. It wasn't like a watered down version. It was like full on everything Samsung had. They just threw it into that device. With the Note line now, with the Note 10 and Note 10 Plus, Samsung did some weird stuff. I don't know what they were thinking, but you still have that full-on super premium build, super premium phone in one single device without having to, have the option, should I get the light version of the Note or the Max version? This was only the one model, which I really liked. This phone also has IP68 dust and water resistance, which we're still at IP68 for a lot of phones. So this phone, without a doubt, super, super good value in my opinion. And it still feels like $1,000 phone. Now, looking at software, this is where, things kind of get a little weird, because I'm pretty sure the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, I don't know if it's going to get the Android 10 version of One UI. If Samsung made a recent announcement, maybe, it's getting it or maybe it's not. But because the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 and the Samsung Galaxy S8 are kind of in the same league, I'm pretty sure the Galaxy S8 is not going to get Android 10. I hope it does. I think that would be really awesome. But I don't think it's going to be getting One UI 2. With the Note 8, we have One UI right now with Android Pie. I don't know if it's going to get One UI 2 though. And in my opinion, to be completely honest, I don't think there's that crazy of a difference between One UI and One UI 2. I think that's definitely an improvement. I have it on my Galaxy S10 right now, and I think it's cool, but I don't know if it's like the best, upgrade. I think Android Pie with One UI was a really big upgrade. So I think, in a way it's kind of sad whether it does or doesn't get the update, but I don't think you should, worry about it too much. You're still going to be getting security updates for a minute. And also you can go and custom ROM this thing if you root it. And there's a lot of ROMs out for this thing too. So either or, you can go sit here and not update it and still be fine. Or you can go and update it with custom ROM support and still be good, be even better. So if I own the Note 8 as a main device right now, I would definitely custom ROM it. I think there's a lot of custom ROMs out for this thing too. So a lot of third-party development support. So even though this phone, nobody's talking about it right now, I think a lot of people are still developing for it. So that's a really awesome thing without a doubt. So in terms of software, you're pretty much done with it, but third-party support is still out there, and I would still recommend you guys to go and, download a ROM or two on it if you want to. Now let's move on to the performance side of things. Now, this thing has the Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chipset, so a little bit of an older chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 540 GPU, and all three variants of the Note 8 have 6GB of RAM. Now, what I want to note is that the storage variant sizes of the Note 8 were 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte variants. Now, what I will tell you is with the Pixel 4 XL, as we just saw, and the 4, that max model is 128. With this one, we're getting the 256 above that, but also we're getting the microSD card slot on top of that, so you'll probably never run out of storage on this thing. And if you do, you can just pop out your microSD card and put in another one in that. So without a doubt, I love Samsung for still keeping their microSD card slots on some of their phones at least. But even this phone has some things that even the Pixel 4 XL doesn't have, which is so crazy. But in terms of performance, what I can tell you, I had no issues running anything on my device. I'll probably get the bad stuff out of the way first. It got a little hot sometimes, but that's not that big of a deal to me. I think it's, any phone gets hot, but this one just felt like a little bit more. But I've had that with a lot of Samsung phones. It's not that big of a deal. But with this phone, for the price and for the age of this phone, it does not feel like a slow phone at all. Whenever I'm doing anything with it, I felt like it, did it to the best of its ability. And of course, if you compared it to the Galaxy S10, I know the Galaxy S10 is way faster. The S10 Plus is faster. The Note 10 is way faster too. But when I'm not thinking about it, when I'm just using this phone day by day, it didn't feel like I was missing out on anything for real. Smaller apps, if I'm like doing a bunch of apps in the background, they open up just fine when I wanted to go through them. Heavier intensive apps and games, those were fine too, Real Racing 3, games like in that caliber were fine. I think maybe, this isn't even just a performance thing, but sometimes the OLED screen does have like the OLED bleeding thing, which I think some people call it. So if there's like black pixels and it gets to white, sometimes it kind of gives some weird performance things that it kind of looks a little weird sometimes, but that's not, like I said, a performance thing. That's just kind of an image thing. And I feel like any OLED device has that. But with this one, no complaints at all. I mean, of course, like the newer phones are faster. The Samsung Galaxy S10, like I said, faster. The Pixel 4, those are faster probably. But the Note 8, I think, still definitely holds its own. And I think it's really, really good without a doubt. So, of course, when you factor everything in, maybe it's not the best performing device anymore, probably like I stated, but it's still comparable. And I think it's still worth every dollar in terms of performance. Now moving on to the cameras, this thing had 2 camera sensors on the back, 2 12 megapixel sensors actually, a wide angle lens and a telephoto lens. And what's really funny is that even the Pixel 4, I've been comparing this thing to the Pixel 4, I should have just done my own comparison instead. That camera is kind of similar to this one as well, except the telephoto lens is 16 megapixels, but there's no ultra wide sensor on this camera, which some people might not like, especially in this day and age. We have a lot of phones coming out that have that ultra wide sensor, which is super cool, and I have it on my 11 Pro. I used it all the time. And newer phones have it too, and I think it's really cool, but I think without a doubt, this phone camera is still very good in terms of quality. There's still a lot of features built into this camera too. You can do 4K, 1080p at 60 frames per second, and I think without a doubt, this camera is still good. However, like I've stated, the newer phone systems that we have now within the last couple months that have been released are definitely taking over. And I think if you don't even have an ultra wide sensor and a telephoto lens, you're going to be kind of future proofing yourself. But I think this phone is still, with that telephoto lens, I think it's still good enough to, get you going. So without a doubt, I think the quality camera is still good. There's still a bunch of built-in features in this camera app as well. On the front, we have an 8 megapixel sensor. That video resolution is 1440p. And like I said, both camera sensors are great, with the back camera being way better in my opinion. So without a doubt, the camera sensors get a thumbs up in my books. Now ending it off with battery life. Okay, this thing has a 3300 mAh battery, which isn't a horribly low size of battery. I mean, I think it's good. But the thing is that with a lot of these phones, especially with older phones, batteries do degrade over time. So it's not at that full 3300 anymore. It's probably at like 20 something, like 2700 probably, maybe even less, maybe more, but it's still not at that 3300 unless you're buying a brand new. Now, I don't know how easy it is to replace things with this phone, but what I can tell you is that I would probably recommend replacing the battery on this thing if you were to get it. With this phone, you cannot replace the battery just by opening the back. This thing is sealed in all the way. Just make sure you buy one in good condition if you're planning on buying one. But if the battery was at that full 3300, I think it would be good. I think, it wouldn't probably be as good as like something like a Galaxy S10 or a Galaxy S10 Plus, but I still think this battery life is good enough to get you through a day. But I would definitely tell you the battery life and the battery size is not something that's like brag-worthy in this day and age. The Pixel 4 that just came out has like a 3700 mAh battery. The Pixel 4 XL, the bigger model. The Pro Max has like a 3900 mAh battery. The Galaxy S10 Plus has a huge battery size as well. So without a doubt, I'll definitely tell you, yes, the newer phones have bigger batteries. This one still kind of in the weird size, not crazy huge, but not crazy small either. It's very average in my opinion. Now some other things to hit on, the S Pen, like I said, super cool. I love that. Fingerprint sensor on the back. which I prefer a fingerprint sensor over Face ID or any face unlocking thing. I really like how Samsung did that with the fingerprint sensor. I think it's in a really bad location though, but I think it gets the job done. They eventually moved it with the Note 9, but the Note 8 still has that fingerprint sensor, which is awesome. Very awesome build quality, very awesome screen, micro SD card slot, USB Type-C, headphone jack. There's so much going for this phone that, like I've stated, I think this is probably one of the best value per dollar phones out in the market right now. On eBay, you can probably pick one up for like a couple $100. I'm talking like $200, $250 in like very good condition for the base models. I think you'd be perfectly set with getting a Galaxy Note 8. And I know some people who have the Note 8, and if it wasn't for people trying to persuade them to get the newer phones, I don't think they would have switched, in my opinion. I think this phone has a lot going for it, and in some cases, it beats a lot of phones that are being released now. With that micro SD card slot, those storage variants, the screen, the build quality, so much going for it that it's still a tremendous phone in my opinion. So if you want to pick one up, I'll find the cheapest one on Amazon and I'll link it straight down in the description below so you guys can get it straight from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.